Hi guys, it's CROSLAYER. Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. Today is my first crochet tutorial. Woo! Woo! It's been long awaited because I freehand everything and I cannot keep track of every single step that I do because I crochet so chaotically. But I recently got an order for a mask inspired by this picture right here. And the person wanted two. He wanted a pink one and a beige one. Here's the pink one. I was like writing down my steps so that I can take you through how I do the second one. Let's get into it. So first I just want to say that there's kind of 1,000 different ways you can do the same project, but for this one I used 4-weight yarn, 6mm hook, scissors, stuffing, yarn needle, and display head. I'm going to try to include timestamps of the written pattern if anyone just wants to skip through that. And I like to work my projects from bottom to top, so we're going to be starting with the chin. First step is a slip knot. I put a diagram because I cannot explain this for the life of me. You just kind of like pull the yarn in on itself. Just take a second to look at that. And next, I chained 50. I just went with that number to keep it simple, but the main thing is to make sure that the chains fit around your forehead loosely. Next, make sure all your chains are facing the same way, and you're going to slip stitch to connect the ends together. Now you chain up one to start your first row. Keep in mind you kind of got to do this at the start of every new row. I like to use half double crochets for the base of my mask, so I'm going to be going into the second chain from the hook. Yarn over. And then I poke through. Pull through one. And then pull through all three. And that's a half double crochet. And you kind of just want to repeat that across the rest of the row. Crocheting into chains definitely takes some getting used to, so just take your time with this first row. This is me just showing the half double crochet a couple more times. You could skip through if you know what you're doing. At the end of the first row, you're going to skip the chain up one from before, this little piece, and you're going to go into the stitch right above it and slip stitch to join the ends together. And that's the first row done. Boom. To start the next row, you chain up one again, and you're just going to keep going around. For the chin, it's going to be 3 rows of half double crochets. This is me nearing the end of the second row. I have 1 half double crochet left to do. And now I'm slip stitching the ends together. Row 2 done. And now the third and final row for the chin. Row 4, starting the mouth, so I half double crochet 16 stitches, and me zooming right now, and into the 17th stitch I slip stitch. I feel like that gives like a sleeker shape, or like a sharper edge to the mouth. Then I chain 15. This chain is going to be like the gap of the mouth, essentially. And then I count 15 stitches and slip stitch into the 15. And now we have the mouth. We're getting somewhere now. Boom. Period. You're just gonna half double crochet the rest of row 4 now. For rows 5 through 8, you're just gonna half double crochet all across. No increase, no decrease, no chaining, no nothing. This part is pretty easy. Be sure to take your time when half double crocheting into the chain of the mouth gap, just to make sure everything's like even and consistent. For row 9, you're going to chain up 1 and half double crochet into 14 stitches. When you're done with that, you're going to start shaping the eyes by chaining 10. When making the chains for the eyes, make sure that they're loose enough to where they can stretch. When you're done with these chains, you're going to count 8 stitches and slip stitch into the 8th, and then you're going to slip stitch into the 9th. You could kind of see one of the eyes already forming with the eye gaps. And to make the other eye, you chain 10 again. Then you're gonna count and half double crochet into the 8th stitch. And then you're gonna half double crochet the rest of the row. At this point, you should have the eye shapes done, and if you don't like how they're looking or they're uneven, you can mess around with the tension of the chains. For rows 10 through 18, it's pretty simple. You just half double crochet across the rows. The rest of the rows are going to be meant for closing off the top. Rows 19 through 23 are going to have the same sequence, so at the start you chain 1, and you're going to decrease, and to decrease you yarn over. You're going to be combining these 2 stitches right here. So you yarn over, poke through 1, pull through 1, you're going to have 3 loops on the hook, poke through the next stitch, pull through 1, now you're going to have 4 loops on the hook, and then you're going to pull through all 4. So that's a decrease. Next you're going to do 2 half double crochets. So the sequence is going to be 1 decrease and 2 half double crochets across the row. So just look over how to do that decrease again, and you should be good. You might have to finish some of these rows with 1 or 3 half double crochets, which is fine, don't stress it, just make sure you start the next row with the decrease, and continue the sequence. And this is me joining the end of the row with the slip stitch again. Once you're done with row 23, it should look something like this. For row 24, it's basically the same as the previous rows, but instead of the sequence being 1 decrease and 2 half double crochets, it's going to be 1 decrease and 1 half double crochet. And it should look something like this now. For row 25, you kind of want to fold the opening, and you're going to poke through both sides and slip stitch it closed, basically like sewing it closed. And this is the seam I'm left with after closing it. Then you cut and pull the yarn through and tighten. At this point, I like to flip the mask inside out so the top isn't so pointed. For the horns, you're going to want to leave a good chunk of yarn before doing your slip knot, because you're going to use that later to sew in the horns. You're going to want to chain 20 and make sure all the chains are facing the same way before slip stitching the ends together. Then you're going to chain up 1 to start your first row. Then you're going to go into the second stitch from the hook and start half double crocheting across the row. Just like the mask, you're going to want to slip stitch the ends of the rows together. For rows 2 through 8, you're going to want to chain up 1 and decrease 1 and half double crochet across the row up until the last 2 stitches where you're going to decrease again. So basically it's a decrease at the beginning of the row and a decrease at the end of the row, and then joining the ends with the slip stitch. These are the last 2 stitches I saved at the end of the row, and I'm going to put my last decrease. And then just slip stitch the ends together. You're going to repeat this sequence up until the end of the 8th row, where it should look something like this. To close up the top in row 9, you're going to want to fold the opening in half and poke through both sides and slip stitch it closed. I only had to use 2 slip stitches. This is what it looked like. Then you're going to want to cut the yarn and fasten it off. And you're going to go through the bottom of the horn and pull that piece of yarn through. Now you're going to do that process again to get the second horn. Then you're going to stuff the horns with whatever stuffing you have. I get mine from Michael's, but you could honestly cut up like an old stuffed animal. Sewing the horns on is kind of hard to explain. It kind of just takes some practice, but you want to first figure out where you're going to place the horns and just basically sew into each chain at the bottom of the horn into the mask. Once you're done going into each of those stitches, on the last stitch, you're going to want to go into it twice because this locks the sewing into place. At this part, I like to sew the loose yarn back into the horn and then cut. Then you just do that again with the other horn, and you're pretty much done. This is what she's looking like, super cute. To finish it off, I'm going to sew that loose tail end into the mask by just weaving it in and out, random stitches, and then cutting. And this is the final fit I put together. Super cute, super tea. A little simple mask for Halloween, I don't know. I really hope this tutorial made sense. If not, it is my first one, so they'll only get better from here. Let me know if any of you guys tried it, and I thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.